Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and today I'll be adding some wood ash into my garden beds. But before I do so, I wanted to share with you a discussion about the dangers of using wood ash in the garden. Usually these are stated around the effect of wood ash on the pH of the soil, which will affect nutrient availability. Long story short, I think that these concerns are largely overstated, and in fact easily counteracted by a small application of elemental sulfur at the same time that you're spreading the wood ash. I'll go over that ratio with you today. First of all, this is about 1 gallon of wood ash. This 1 gallon is enough that you should apply it to about a 200 square foot area in your garden. That's about a 10 by 20 area in your garden. So you actually do spread it quite lightly. At that level, you'll be adding a bunch of little nutrients from the life of the tree. So you know the plot. The tree grew up and it pulled a bunch of nutrients up from the soil. It pulled up in large amounts that are present in the wood, things like potassium, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, calcium, and then a whole bunch of those little micronutrients that were used for building the cells of that plant. So by the time that the wood is used for burning, you've burned off the carbon dioxide, you've burned off the water, and what's remaining in there is just those nutrients and a few chunks of the charcoal, which eventually do become a bit of a soil conditioner. So from my point of view, this is the environmentally sustainable way of handling wood ash, is adding it back near the point of use directly to the plants that can use those nutrients. But again, the issue about the pH. So what is the concern with the pH? Well, because of the high level of calcium carbonate in the wood ash, it actually does raise your pH a little bit when you apply it. How much? Well, if you apply it as directed, like I say, this 1 gallon over the course of about 200 square feet in the garden, that will raise your pH approximately 0.2 pH points. That's not a lot. But the other thing you can do at the same time, just to counteract that, because it's not a large amount over a wide area, is you can add in some elemental sulfur. The elemental sulfur is added in about this amount. It's just a little over half a cup for a gallon of wood ash, which really is not a lot. Again, if you're considering it being spread over the course of 200 square feet out in the garden, these are a few granules per square foot. It's not an awful lot. But what this does, this sulfur is elemental sulfur, is not in the form that the plants use initially. This elemental sulfur is pretty inert in the environment until it reaches the soil. Then soil bacteria help to convert it into the sulfate form, which becomes plant available. Now, I should say that sulfur, and in the sulfate form, is one of the almost macronutrients of your plants. So it's used in large amounts, not quite as high as nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, but near that range. So sulfur is used widely and it's not bad for your plants. In the amounts that we'd be adding it here, almost inconsequential. So what you are able to do with this, because this amount of the elemental sulfur, once processed by the bacteria in your soil, counteracts almost exactly that 1 gallon of wood ash, you're able to add both, and what you've done is you've added almost all of the major nutrients to some degree or another, with the exception of nitrogen. So that's all on my quick take on the dangers of using wood ash in the soil. I really think it's an easy thing to counteract, and from my point of view, this is far more sustainable than either sending this wood ash into burying it in some bin in the corner of your property and not giving it back to your plants, or sending it out to the landfill. Those are counter to my intuition of gardening. Thanks for watching today, and if you have any questions about this, please drop those below the video.